Hi everyone, and welcome to another video from thee. My name's Daniel, and it's a real joy to have you watch this video live or to watch this video whenever you get the chance. Today we're going to be looking on some of the ideas around Taoism. And I think, first of all, it's important to say that when one talks about the Dao, one must be very careful in how they present such a topic, because to say that you know the Dao is to say that you have really come to full enlightenment, and that you have the full sum and bodem of the knowledge of the experiencing of the thing. It's like saying in Zen that I know Zen, and or one saying that I'm enlightened, or one saying I am God. And we have to be very careful with such things. Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, he was asked to describe what the Tao is, and paradoxically writes the Tao Te Ching in an attempt to, I would say, signpost what it is. See, the thing is, in the first chapter, of the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu writes that the Tao that can be described is not the true and eternal Tao, which basically means that the moment you describe the Tao, you've lost it. You have attempted to contain the thing that is infinite in size. The box cannot contain something that is bigger than the box, infinitely so. The Tao, I was speaking to my wife about this months ago, and quite rightly, she said, well, what's the point then of learning something that is unlearnable, that cannot be attained, that cannot be fully understood? Something that is transcendent. And what I like about the Tao Te Ching, which is what we're going to be going through the pages of as we think about the Tao, because paradoxically, that's all we can do. In a dialogue like this, the only way we can explore the Tao is to talk about the Tao, and unfortunately use concepts that we are familiar with to help us signpost us to the real thing. The thing I love about the Tao and the Tao Te Ching and Taoism in general is that it's filled with mystery. It's filled with awe and wonder, and with something that is extremely lofty and yet so simple and small and like a seed. What am I saying? So when I was a Christian, and I still have these awes and wonders now, but there's always been a degree of like, well, what is God? What does he look like? Or she look like? What are God's attributes? And I remember reading a story in the Old Testament where Elijah had a vision, and he saw God on his throne, and he saw God in the throne room, and it was filled with these massive angels called seraphims. And I just was like, wow, There was nothing that Elijah could have done to warranted such a thing. It was given to him. And the same with Moses. Moses, when God said, come on then, what is it you want? And Moses said, look, this is it. Moses, says to God, look, I just want to see your face. Show me who you are. Let me see your face. Let me embrace and see and get a feel of what this is about. And God says to Moses, dude, you will not see my face. Rather, I'll walk past you. I'll put you in a part of the mountain and you can see the back parts of me. And after that experience, Moses' face was completely lit up and he had to put a big hoodie over his face. And then the Gita, actually, Arjuna meeting with Krishna. And Arjuna says to Krishna, hey, look, I just want to see you. Show me who you really are. And Krishna unreservedly does show him who he is. And the Gita goes into great detail about the real nature of his Godhead, of his Godhood. But in all these instances, there is this man encountering God in a way that is unadulterated. It's, here you see me as for what I am. But it's very much dependent on the sovereignty of God, both in the Gita and in the Bible. There's nothing that we can do to induce, influence, or manipulate God to give us that sort of experience. And that's one reason why I love the Dao, because the Dao then sobers us up. It sobers us up to the reality of present state awareness of now. And it also is a rebellious spirit in the sense that Taoism will not allow for dogmatism. It won't allow for us to be crystallized in our thinking and conceptualizing that actually life is very much fluidity and spinning. And that's how it will continue to go forever. And it keeps us centered into the present moment. So there's nothing wrong in the sense of thinking about things on a supernatural perspective and in a transcendent perspective. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But Taoism gives us a balance. It reinforces us back into the natural order of things, the natural way. And so we can talk about Taoism. We can talk about all the concepts. I mean, Taoism over the history has been used as a way of where it's been worshipped. Tao has been worshipped as a god, and also Tao has been twisted and changed in the sense to fit other world religions, such as there is a Bible out there which uses Christ and Tao, and the argument is that Tao is Christ. He is the Word, the Creator. But that's why I love Taoism. If there was any clarity in what I've just been talking about, that is, it grounds you back into present moment reality. It reinforces, or it sharpens your focus back to the reality of right now, that there is a natural way. And in that natural way, it is beautiful, it is wonderful, it is infinitely creative, it's awesome. So Taoism, and actually one of the first religions and philosophies that I started to read up on and embrace after my kind of low period of mental health, and during that time being very much radicalized or having a very fundamentalist, dogmatic attitude. It was one of the first things that broke that. It's a powerful thing, and it's important for us to obviously read and to understand the concepts of Tao. You have to, but it's not getting stuck on it, because if you're like me, you'll read it, you'll study it, and if you'll just allow it then to, play around in your mind, if you can just play with it, just let it, flow naturally, reflect on it, and let it just go, and allow it to assimilate naturally into your consciousness, into your psyche. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience, because you start to then just to rest back a little bit, and you just go, I'll follow a bit more of my intuition rather than my complete cognition and intellectualizing. I'm just going to follow my gut. And this is where some of the premises of Wu Wei come in as well. As one allows, or one starts to release and allow the ideas of Dao to just play around and follows the natural way, we start to just go with the flow, and we're just like, oh, yes. So it's like today, meeting with a client, and don't know who the client was, never dealt with that person's situation, and then was on top of that, was given extra information literally as I was about to meet the client, and one could freak out and go, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? Blah, 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 blah. But in the end, I said, you know what? It's okay. I said to the mental health coordinator, we'll just go with the flow. And she was like, and it turned out to go really well. So that's the wonderful benefits of Dao. And so finally, because I'm probably being a bit long-winded here, finally, I think it's a general good rule, and it's a general good rule that with anything you read, they're just signposting. They're just husks of wisdom. A great analogy from Alan Watts, where he described about Christ and Krishna. He would say that they were pointing to the way, and the problem was that folks would end up sucking on the finger that was pointing to the very thing that we all are wanting. Call that self, God, Tao, Zen, whatever you want to call it. And so it's important in our studying of such things, we don't suck the thumbs of the writer. We thank them and trust in them and follow the way that they're pointing, and then we go to have that experience for ourselves, and we go to taste the honey that we want, that we're being given. We want the experience. So anyway, enough waffling. So some ideas then and references of the Dao, and I'm just going to go through my translation of the Tao Te Ching, very contemporary translation, so I hope you enjoy. It was written by, or translated by, it was translated by Tom Butler Bowden. Check him out. Pretty good. Okay, chapter 1. It's a good place to start. What is the Dao? The Dao that can be understood cannot be the primal or cosmic Dao. And that's literally what we've just been talking about. To say that you've understood the Dao cannot be the actual original Dao. You've probably got a taste of it, a snippet of it, but you haven't fully comprehended it. Just as an idea that can be expressed in words cannot be the infinite idea. And I can relate to that because so often the ideas that I have in my mind, I really struggle to verbalize and to write down. And so I can only express as best as I can, but words fail me. And here's one of the issues. We are in a world right now where we understand our world based on symbols. Writing, for example, are symbols. They're just etchings from are etchings from human beings trying to grasp and understand what this natural world is. To call something, to write the word purple and to say the word purple hasn't fully comprehended and understood purple. And in fact, in one sense, even my looking at the color purple doesn't necessarily mean it's the same color to another person who looks at what is described as purple. And so the point is that words, symbols, they have limitations. They don't express the real reality of things. We are just simply containing things. And so if we can start to dissolve this sort of duality, this sort of kind of limitation, we find that actually that there is so much, in fact, infinite creative possibilities and realities. But it requires, from my own personal research and experience, it requires a degree of reflection, a degree of letting go, a degree of meditation, in the sense of that we are just dismantling things. So for example, there's a client that I used to work with, and I said this in a previous video, I found it as an opportunity to introduce a Rogerian practice, introduce Rogerian theory into her life, in the sense that, you know, Rogerian theory would be used to help produce a climate for my client to actualize in, to become more than what they already are, to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel good, to have an enriched life. And seeing this client, I wasn't going to go by their diagnoses that, oh, this client had about 5 different types of diagnoses. And I wasn't going to allow myself to see that client with those 5 categories. In fact, I read about them, I understood them, and I respected them, of course. But that client was more than those 5 categories. That client was not going to be defined by those 5 things. They were a part of her, can't deny that. But also they weren't the ending, the sum and bodum of who that client is. And then so having a loftier and trying to see a more wholesome person produced a far better quality of relationship, which turned out to be where a lot of workers would say, oh, Dan, why have you got such a wonderful relationship with this person when this person could be like this and that, and has done this to this person and that to that person, and you've not had anything. And it's because of this. It's because I will not allow myself, as best as I can when I'm mindful of it, allow myself to be ruled and limited by words and by conditions and by expectations. You know, the Dao surpasses all things. And if we would want to become more like the Dao, more like God, then we are going to start behaving in a way that transcends and overcomes these sort of descriptive barriers. And so it's just going to do the nutting for some people who like to have things all compartmentalized. No, we rather, this is more a lot of like we just interrelate with everything, interconnect with everything. We're just overflowing to everything. And yet this ineffable Tao, ineffable meaning indescribable, was the source of all spirit and matter. So everything that you can think of finds its source in the Tao. And being expressed was the mother of all created things, which is curious because they're not saying that words and symbols are wrong. And maybe I'm a bit too on the other side, a bit bullish for the other side. But with Taoism, it's about balance and harmony. You think we'll talk about the yin and yang in a minute, but it's about balance and harmony. And so all the things that have been expressed that we've come to name, and that's, you know, in what we've discovered, has come from the Dao, and all the things that haven't been expressed and haven't been discovered have come from the Dao. So basically, everything comes from the Dao. Therefore, not to desire the things of the sense is to know the freedom of spirituality. And to desire is to learn the limitation of matter. So it's not saying that you should do one over the other. It's just saying, look, you do this, this is what will happen. You do that, that will happen. What's wrong with doing both? Finding that harmony. These two things, spirit and matter, so different in nature, have the same origin, which is the Tao. This unity of origin is the mystery of mysteries, and that's the fascinating thing. And this is where I think of yin and yang. So not to desire things and to desire things, they are very much like the yin and yang, the black and the white, with the little dots, and it's constantly spinning forever and ever and ever. Another way I like to see it is not to desire and to desire are like two ribbons are wrapped around this wonderful pole, which is the Tao, wrapped around. And so it's all interconnected. It's not offensive. It's just beautiful harmony. This unity of origin is the mystery of mysteries, but it is the gateway to spirituality. And so perhaps we could say then that to find the balance between desire and not desire, to find the balance with things that are opposites, dualistic, that in itself is the access point into the realm of beautiful, wonderful spirituality. Woo. Number two. So a lot of the Tao Te Ching doesn't just particularly describe directly, should I say, directly describe the Tao. Rather, it gives you examples, it gives you tastes, but everything is connected and it's showing a segment of the Tao. So it's only fitting that we just talk about chapter 2 because it goes more into this ideas of opposites. When everyone recognizes beauty to be only a masquerade, then it is simply ugliness. In the same way, goodness, if it is not sincere, is not goodness. So existence and non-existence are incompatible. The difficult and the easy are mutually opposites. Just as the long and the short, the high and the low, the loud and the soft, the before and the behind are all opposites, and each reveals the other. So we've already been talking about opposites. We've already been talking about the wife. And this is a great example of what we're saying here, that so existence and non-existence are incompatible. The difficult and the easy are mutually opposites. They're not, it's not inherent, it's not saying inherently, oh, one is worse than the other. It's not saying that this is a good versus evil. This is just saying how things are. If you call something beautiful, then you must have a reference point of something that you consider to be ugly. If you see something that is long and you're calling it long, then you must have an idea of something that is short. But that also doesn't mean to say that what you consider to be short is really short, fundamentally speaking, because you could find something shorter. It's like, the way we look at, the way we see north is from a particular point of perspective. But if we were to stand somewhere else in a different part of the world, that would be different to our understanding of what north would be. High, low, short, thin. These are all concepts. These are all ways of us understanding and dealing with the natural world. And that's really something because, again, this Tao, which is, and it's interesting as well, because in chapter 2, Lao Tzu could have gone more into about the Tao and the mysteries and the eternality of the Tao and blah, blah, blah. But he goes straight back into the into the natural order, because he's like, look, the Tao's ineffable, dudes. Stop conceptualizing. Just get yourself back into reality, and straight away we do. But to understand that the opposites are not necessarily oppositions, but rather are just more complementary, maybe. But just to actually see that there's harmony, there is a balance between both. That is the Tao. That is you're on the right track. But that's not saying that is the Tao, because that contradicts what I'm just saying about, oh, you've achieved Tao. But you're on the right path. And so put it into more practical context. Again, thinking about this client. So as a rule of thumb, challenging behavior is not necessarily an expression of someone being very naughty. In fact, it's often a communication of something that this person wants, or it's a frustration. But we could easily interpret and easily see it as, oh, this person's being really naughty and they're being bad. But if you fundamentally don't believe in the word bad, then you have to then consider what the other options are. And generally speaking, from my experience of when I've seen challenging behavior, it's not because someone's bad at all. It's because of a desire, or of a need, or of a frustration. Something's not being met. And once we find what that need or that desire is, that type of behavior then diminishes. But then you don't end there. Then you have to think, well, then how can we reduce the likelihood of seeing that challenging behavior in the future? So there's some proactive work. So that the point is that if you don't see things as fundamentally or inherently bad or good, you've then got more potential to be creative in the work that you do. In my case, working in the field of care and mental health. So that leaves you then with more possibilities to play with. But also it allows you to access that higher wisdom, which isn't found in your intellect, but is found in your intuition, which again, with Taoism, that's what it's trying to orientate your alertness levels to. Because don't forget, if we're relying on words and symbols and intellectuality to understand our world, then we are cutting off a massive, an equal part of ourselves. Of course, we need the intellect. We don't want to discard the intellect and say, oh no, we're all touchy-feely based. We need both. But certainly in the Western world, we are more intellectually driven, more empirically driven. And that's not a bad thing. But we also need to be mindful then that at what cost, but how can we maintain that age-old, natural, intuitive wisdom? And then finally, because we're getting on to nearly 2 minutes, only 1 minute is 30 minutes long. Therefore, the wise man is not conspicuous in his affairs, or given to too much talking. Though troubles arise, he is not irritated. And why might that be? Because troubles then become just events. It's how we perceive that event which causes the trouble. How we look at reality. So I know on an intellectual level, not that I've experienced it myself, but if I were to lose everything, that wouldn't be a desirable outcome for me. But I know on an intellectual level, if I allow the thoughts of why me, that's not fair, why doesn't it never happen to him, all that's doing is diminishing the amount of mental energy in me. It's damaging me. So the more we can see then things in a more of an impersonal way, is just more of an event rather than being marred and tarred with our own biases, the more preservation we have of this energy that all of us have. Though troubles arise, he is not irritated. Easier said than done, though, mind you. He produces, but does not own. He acts, but claims no merit. He builds, but does not dwell therein. And because he does not dwell therein he never departs. And I just want to touch on those last 2 points, actually. He produces, but does not own. And that could be very similar to some of the kind of ideas with Buddhism, for example. We suffer because we desire. We suffer because we have expectations that never get met. And in Bhakti Yoga in the Gita, for example, Krishna says in the Gita, I think in chapter 3 mainly, work but without the intention of getting the fruit of that work for just a selfless cause, work actually to offer it as a sacrifice of worship to me. And that way you are dissolving the law of karma. That way you are, sorry, not karma, yeah, maybe karma, but you're dissolving the law of samsara, this endless cycle, which is motivated either by pleasure or by pain. He builds but does not dwell. No, sorry. He produces but does not own. He acts but claims no merit. Again, particularly in the Kara world, I've seen it where people, all they want is just a bit of praise, a pat on the back from their higher management, or from their own colleagues. And of course, there's not saying there's fundamentally something wrong with this, but my question would be is why do you do what you do? And if it's for an external stimuli, an external locus of evaluation, then maybe you're setting yourself up for a bit of a bite or a nasty fall. Rather, reflect why you do what you do, and learn to have more strength and more learn to strengthen your own inner voice that says, "Hey, great job. This is for a good cause," rather than having to have someone else tell that for you. And don't get me wrong, it's nice when it does, but usually it's better if you can learn to be appreciated without relying on someone else, using them as a crutch. Again, easier said than done, and by no means am I even perfect at that. But intellectually, I know. He builds but does not dwell therein, and because he does not dwell therein, he never departs. And still a bit mysterious to me, but I suspect again this is to do with your point of view and how you see things and how and what your agenda is. So there's an old Stoic quote from Marcus Aurelius where he says, if I choose not to feel pain, it's not painful. And yes, that's true to a degree, and that's probably what he's speaking to, because there is pain, actual pain from something, but then there is the opportunity for our minds to exacerbate that pain into something worse. And I can remember when I was a kid, I would have a bit of a cough, and if I wanted to use that to try and skive off school, I would really exacerbate that cough, really believe I was sick, and lo and behold, was sick. I'm not sure if it was the real thing though, but my cough felt a lot worse, and I certainly had a sore throat afterwards. But there you are. That's actually not as much as I was hoping to do, but maybe we can do another video on the Dao, or some ideas on the Dao. But that's 2 chapters of the Dao Di Ching, and there's plenty more, but go and check it out, and I'll see you soon. Take it easy.